Hello there. Everything seems to be working. I'm just checking that YouTube's all linked up with my streaming software. Yeah, and I think we're ready to go. That's excellent. My name's John Nussey. I'm a co-founder of ONN Studio with my wife Avril, who's manning the chat at the moment. And I'm also an avid Arduino user and author of Arduino for Dummies. I've been planning for a while to do a bit more to get people involved with Arduino. So it's a hugely influential part of my career. And I thought Arduino Day 2021 would be a good day to start doing it. So yeah, I've done a quick presentation just to give you a bit of background about myself and I guess my perspective on Arduino, how I picked it up, how I worked it into my career and my work. Yeah, just to give you a flavour of the kind of projects you can do. And then towards the end, I'll be showing the kind of workshops we're planning on offering. This is something that I benefited from a great deal when I started out. And I just think it's a great way to get to know people who are doing similar things, maybe struggling with similar challenges. And Arduino's a fascinating little circuit board. Got one right here. If you're here, the chances are you already know what it is. If you're here because of Arduino Day, but if you're tuning in later, I'm going to be doing some videos covering some of the topics from my book, a bit of history about Arduino, some getting started guides, and really just how to dip your feet in the water and get started with Arduino. So without further ado, I'll get this presentation that I've got. So it all seems to be working. So this is, I gave a similar presentation for Bar Arduino, which was quite a nice sort of social event that Arduino did, I think when the pandemic was really shutting a lot of things down. So they got a lot of friends of Arduino around to chat about their experiences, their projects, and do a weekly catch up as if you're in a pub chatting about projects. So I've tweaked that a little bit and added a few more slides in. But yeah, it's good just to give you a flavour of where I'm coming from with it. Lots of people in Arduino come from different backgrounds. I'm a designer, technologist, entrepreneur. I've had quite a varied experience over the years. Lots of people are coming at it from either computer science or engineering, or artists who want to do something interesting, or hobbyists that are looking for something new to play around with. So ONN Studio is our company, as I mentioned. We've covered quite a broad range of things over the years. We've gradually gone towards full product development. So we started off doing a lot of early stage prototyping for companies. And that might be for one-off projects. So advertising companies wanting to do something special to wow their client. It might have been R&D projects, testing that things would work before pursuing a full product development. So proof of concept, prototyping. And then we sort of worked more towards products. We found like a lot of our work was going into events, and they're like amazing to work on because they're never the same, but equally because they're never the same, they're really hard work and you end up relearning things every time. So we found that we enjoyed product development because you gradually build on your knowledge and you have a goal to get it to market, and you can spend months or years working on getting the product just right, whereas events tend to be maybe get a couple of weeks or a couple of months if you're lucky, and then it's all taken down and you start again at the next thing. So yeah, we've done a bit of both. We've done some more industrial design, making bespoke brass lamps for folk clothing. We've done events for Future Cities Catapult, which was looking at exploring how people design cities or how you could change the city to suit you. And some of these are on our website, so I won't go into all of these. I've picked a few out. Yeah, I thought I should probably start with how I got into Arduino, just to give people a feel for that, because there are many different routes into it. In my case, so I just started my first job in London. I'd worked at a branding company for a while, mainly assisting around the studio with whatever was going on. So I was a bit of a runner, just helping out. One weekend there was a workshop that they were hosting in one of their event spaces. I didn't really know much about it, but it was a toy hacking workshop. So I went along mainly to assist them with getting into the building, setting up their workshop, getting everything laid out for them, getting them on the Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. But I ended up sitting in on the workshop and taking part, and I sort of realised that I hadn't really done any electronics since I was maybe 15 or 16. So I'd been through university in that time, hadn't really gone back to it. But yeah, I was quite lucky. So you can see in this very low resolution video, which is it shows how long ago it was. I think this is 2006. The workshop was hosted by Massimo Banzi, so founder of Arduino, Adam Somlai-Fisher, who is now, I think, founder of Prezi, zooming presentation software, which has been hugely successful. And in the background there, leaning on the wall, Alexandra Deschamps-Sonsino, who is a pillar of the IoT community in London and in Europe as well. Yeah, I was just really, I think, lucky to be involved in this, because as you can see from the still of me and Matt Sefton, who sat next to me, who I still know, it was just really exciting. Adam had come from Budapest. He went to a very cheap market to get some bootleg toys, and the reason for this was that these toys are built with very basic components, so it's very easy to tweak them or change them. And the whole purpose of this workshop was toy hacking. So it was, what can you do with an existing bit of electronics typically in a children's toy? So it might be the voice box off a Barbie, or it might be the motor off Tickle Me Elmo, so it dances around. And I've actually still got, I've got my hack that was, if you can see on, go back to big view for me. So this robot that's just here, that's the insides of a dancing dog, which you can see on the table down towards the bottom right hand side. And we were encouraged to rip apart these toys, basically, see what was inside them, see how they worked, and try and break them just a bit. So you don't want to completely break them and have them burst out in flames, but you do want to figure out how they're controlled. A lot of them have basic components like resistors that you can change. So you can change the pitch of a voice by changing the value of a resistor. And yeah, it was just a great, very practical way of removing the fear of electronics and electricity with low voltage toys like these that run off batteries. And yeah, just having a play to understand how they work. So it's a very hands-on thing. And I'd come from an industrial design course, basically. So I'd done a lot of model making. I was very hands-on, and to be honest, struggled with a lot of the theory, reading textbooks, understanding coding, understanding electronics. But when it's in front of you and you can play around with it, it just means you can, well, for me at least, you can learn a lot quicker. If you're a very visual or very practical person, it's a great way of learning, and it costs relatively little, to be honest. It's just the cost of whatever you're taking apart. So yeah, Adam and Massimo were running this workshop. I made a dancing dog that responded to like a drum machine. So it would do a frame of its dance every time it heard a sound. And yeah, that was not strictly Arduino, but it was my first introduction to electronics from like GCSE level. So that was great. And from that, I went on to go to Arduino workshops with Massimo and Alexandra, and learn more about it. And I think that's maybe the benefit of Arduino as a platform. It's designed to be quite rugged and to be hacked or to be played around with. You don't have to be too delicate about it. So moving on from that, like years later, when we founded the company, I'd been doing lots of little projects in between, building up my knowledge of electronics and coding. Just to give you a flavour of the kind of projects we used that knowledge on. So this is Oyster Cards for hens. I love this project because we spent some of our time on a farm out in the open in the countryside in Oxfordshire. And often when you're in electronics and programming, you don't get outside very much. So it was lovely. And actually working with the hens was quite nice. It's not true that working with animals is a bad thing. It was lovely. So the whole theory of this project was that we wanted to know which hen had laid which egg so that they could do selective breeding. And there's a huge issue in the food industry where with some animals you can selectively breed because there are relatively few of them, but with hens there's so many that they just overbreed and they cull. So if they can selectively breed the hens that are the best performers or the best for commercial farming, then they don't need to overbreed them. So yeah, we made essentially like an Oyster card, so an RFID tag that would sit around the ankle of the hen, and a custom coop that would have an RFID reader in it and an Arduino. So this works the same as the Metro or the Oyster card system in London, whereby when the hen sits near the reader, the tag is read and we know which hen is in that coop at that time. We also had a sensor towards the back, so there was a slight slant on the coop. So when the egg was laid, it would roll to the back of the hen coop and be collected in order, or at least that was the plan. Eggs don't roll quite as easily as you would have thought. But yeah, we did a couple of rounds of this project. One was just a proof of concept, and the second was a refinement of that. And this is perhaps a good example for where Arduino's a great platform for assisting on your project. So the first version we had a development kit that you can buy from like electronic specialist companies. So in this case, it was an RFID kit, and we could plug it into our Arduino, get a readout from it of what was happening, and then we'd have something we could use on a computer in front of us without too much specialized equipment. So we did have specialized readers, but we could get them into a platform we could play around with quite quickly. And the second round of this, we took this. You can sort of see it around the top left of that slide. There's a very large circuit board in there, and that's the development kit. And these are typically impossible to approach. They're very difficult to understand for newcomers to electronics. And they're designed to do everything. So they don't know what people want to do with their system, so they just put everything on a board. And the one just below it on the bottom left of the slide is our version of that. So we made an Arduino Shield, which is like an add-on for an Arduino, that would just give us the information we wanted and work with a smaller antenna, which was fine for our application. And then we could make a few prototypes of that and very quickly test it in the field, literally in the field. And yeah, this is a really nice example of like an R&D type project that we've done. So we made, in the top right, you can see one of the Oyster card tags, one of the RFID tags, which we put around the hen's ankles, and we 3D printed them out of a soft elastic sort of 3D printable material. And that would be a lot softer than the ones they use in the farming industry as it is. Yeah, just pretty much be unnoticed by the hen that was wearing it. So there were a few nice little side projects to this bigger project as well. And slightly more commercial things. So a friend of ours, Oliver, who runs Safe Fromage photo booths, always wanted sort of custom displays or setups for his photo booths for weddings, for special events, things like that. And you can see in this GIF here, it's got like a 3-2-1 with an LED display. There's not a whole load you can get off the shelf that will do that and link up with a high resolution camera, like an SLR camera. So we made a custom board that would control the pixels, the LED pixels, and sync up with the camera. So when you pressed a button, it would do 3-2-1 and take a picture. These are some of the boards we made. So they look quite nice as well, quite branded. So we took a bit of time just tidying them up. But they're quite simple boards that sit on an Arduino. You plug a camera into one of these sets of screws, and power and ground into another. And you can really easily control these LEDs, set them to do whatever you want. For one event, we did thumbs up or smiley faces. But yeah, it just gave Oliver exactly what he wanted for his business. And let's see the next one. Yeah, this is assembly of the board. So this was a small batch, maybe like 15 to 20 of these that we did, and these were photo booths that were touring all the time around the country. So Oliver needed just enough to outfit his photo booths he had, a few spare, and if he wanted to build more in the future, we made it in a way that's very adaptable. So we had layered acrylic that you can sort of see in that large picture on the left, and we could change the arrangement of that to suit his photo booths at the time, or to fit different hardware on them if they had a specific thing he wanted. But yeah, that was a nice project. It was a step for us towards more batch production, trying to make something that's more of a product and less of a one-off. And another project I'm really proud of is our startup. So for a few years, we've run a smart home startup called ONN. We made a smart doorbell. And the whole concept behind this was that you press the button and it calls your phone. It's a very common concept now, but I think back when we started in 2014, maybe 2013 with the concept, it was still relatively new. And our approach was that you just want audio for this. You don't want a camera necessarily because of the surveillance issues. And a lot of people would just like something a bit more slender, lo-fi and simple. So it'd just be straight to your phone with a phone call. And although our later stages developed into a commercial product, the very early prototypes were all Arduino ones. So in this case, we used a cellular shield for an Arduino, so it could send text messages or it could make voice calls off a SIM card. And commercially, this wouldn't have worked because of the cost of it. But for showing people the experience of it, selling it to investors, selling it to customers, it gave us the exact experience we wanted from it. And I think our first prototype I probably did in a few hours on a day, like on a pitch day. And that gave us something that would send a text message when you pressed a button. That was just really quick and easy to explain to people. It didn't look particularly pretty. Like a lot of these, they're all in acrylic, just to hold things together, make them a bit more robust for testing. But essentially, that's where Arduino is at its best, where you want to get an experience and get it into people's hands so that they can validate the experience. And yeah, we use this for pitch events, for demos at trade shows, sort of hidden behind a plinth. So on the outside, it would look like the finished product, which is still in development. And on the inside, it was a mess of wires and Arduino. But yeah, that's a good example of where to start with a product. Obviously, later down the line, we went to mass production. We sold our product through Amazon Prime. And yeah, these are some of the finished PCBs and the assembly drawings that we used in the end. The chip we used, so we used a module for our smart doorbells that's not dissimilar from an Arduino, to be honest, an ESP32. And that is maybe for when you're a bit further down the line, you've done a bit more of the groundwork, but it's still quite an approachable platform. And for us, it did a lot of the jobs we wanted without us having to redesign the wheel. So yeah, you can sort of see, like when it gets to this scale, in some cases, it may still be a similar chip to what an Arduino has on it. But in our case, we moved to something a bit more advanced to suit what our needs were. And that's a nice press shot of it as well. So I should probably talk a bit about Arduino for Dummies as well, seeing as it's Arduino Day. So in 2013, I was approached by Wiley, who are the publishers for Arduino for Dummies, to write the book. There were, I think, 2 or 3 other people pitching for it. And excuse me. And yeah, my approach to the pitch was, I guess I'd come from a design background, from quite a creative workplace, and got into Arduino really fresh to coding and to electronics. So like I said, I hadn't touched it since I was probably 15 or 16 in the case of electronics. And coding, I hadn't really done any until until probably 2005 or 6 when I first started. And I, being quite a practical person, I put a lot of that into the book. So it's designed for people who aren't necessarily already engineers or computer scientists. And it talks in depth about a lot of things. So I think some of the comments say that there's a whole chapter on soldering, and is that too much? And in my case, like, I think you can never really have too much in some of these things, because people want to know the detail of like how they're getting it wrong, how they're getting it right, and some of the techniques you just pick up by repeating and doing over and over again. So I tried to make it appeal to people who'd never touched a soldering iron before in their life, who had never thought about electronics or pursuing that at all. And there are some other very good books. I've got some other Arduino books behind me, like the Arduino Cookbook, Exploring Arduino, some processing books as well. And it's worth, I think, in every case, when you look at books to get, it's worth having a look at the author to see what their background is. So, like, I know Michael, who wrote the Arduino Cookbook, which is an excellent book, but he's coming at it from engineering and computer science. So he is that way inclined already. He probably has a very good understanding of writing code and how to engineer things. And for people who are coming from that background, that might be the better route to go. But if you're maybe more creative, maybe never touched any of this before in your life, that's more the direction I've coming from. And there's some other very good ones. Getting started with Arduino is a very short intro to it, which is good if you've just got a weekend to spend. But yeah, so I at the time I'd been teaching Arduino all over London. So I've taught at the Royal College of Art, Bartlett School of Architecture, Goldsmiths, Ravensbourne, mainly on creative courses where designers are trying to do something physical. So that might be, they might be doing interaction design, trying to design experiences for people. Those kind of things where you need something physical for them to interact with. So a lot of people naturally go towards touch screens and on-screen interfaces, but I think people still enjoy it when there's something a bit more tactile, a good button or a good dial that you can turn, or even something that you can't see or interact with that's happening in the background. But so a lot of those people were looking for an introduction to it to explore their artwork or their design work. And again, that's what I tried to put into the book, a lot of teaching undergrads and postgrads how to get into Arduino. There's been various workshops over the years, like this one in, where's that? I think that's in the Truman Brewery. But yeah, this is like, I think we were assembling a speaker kit in this case, so more specialist things for people who want to make their own speakers at home, or amplifiers, things like that. And you can get a whole range of different people at these workshops as well. Like I've already said, a lot of my experiences have been shaped by going to physical workshops. And I think that's one of the hardest things with the lockdown, is that people aren't as confident going, or can't go out, and aren't as confident to go back out afterwards. And I sort of feel like for anyone who's interested in this area, it's a real shame to miss out on it. And yeah, a lot of people I know, there's a good community in London, and they've spread out and gone around the world as well, who've all learnt in these environments. And it got me thinking more recently about what's on offer at the moment. And it seems like a lot of it's gone towards universities. So there are university courses that offer this as a module in their syllabus. And that's great for the students. That's really good that it's probably covered for them as well in cost-wise. But as far as Arduino workshops, there doesn't seem to be very much in London at the moment. And I'd actually had a chat with Avril about this, whether we could offer something more of a digital experience to suit the time we're in. But yeah, like a digital workshop that would give you some of the same feel, maybe a group of people that you can talk to about what you're building, and try and build up that community again. So as well as our studio work, we're going to be, over the next few weeks, we're going to be setting up some digital workshops where we will either post out kits to people or arrange delivery of them. And we're looking at a few different areas. And I thought Arduino Day would be a good day to bring this up, start talking about it, and also get people's opinion on what their interests are, what they'd like to learn, and what their availability is like as well. So I've just done a very quick slide just to look at the kind of workshops we'd be looking to offer. So beginners workshops, these are the kind that I went to back when I started, and you'd have a couple of days and you'd learn all about Arduino and maybe processing, which is another very good entry to programming. So just make that a bit smaller. So books like this, Processing Handbook for Visual Designers and Artists. Stuff like this is what I learnt with when I was starting out. I'll put links to all these in the comments as well, or in the description later on. But yeah, we're looking at a few different workshops, beginners workshops, so that'd be a couple of days, either on the same weekend or split over 2 weeks to give you a bit of time in between to have a play. More specialist workshops, so experimenting with machine learning is quite a popular topic at the moment, and it's something we've done for a few clients as well. And you can get some of the newer Arduino boards, I'll see if I can get a link up later, but some of the Arduino boards that are coming out now can do machine learning on board. And for people who don't know what that is, that's typically gathering lots of data and trying to spot patterns in it that have been taught to it before. So if, let's say, I think the most common one is around, like, say, face detection, things like that, maybe to teach. So if you show a computer lots of images of a certain kind of face, like if you're trying to spot your mum in a crowd, then it will be able to learn from the patterns that it's established. And you can do this on an Arduino with things like either sensor data or noise levels. Using a microphone is very good, so you could spot if a window was breaking in your house or a baby was crying. Yeah, so that's quite a nice specialist workshop that I'd like to look at if people are interested. And also Internet of Things. And obviously I've done lots of smart home stuff before, and it's become even easier to do. So even since we made the smart doorbell. And I think, yeah, Internet of Things is a general crowd pleaser, because lots of people want to take the data they have on the internet and do something physical with it. So you might get say a sign that pops up by the door whenever it's going to rain, so you know which coat to pack, or you want to know when the next bus is arriving, so you can use the information from Transport for London to tell you how many minutes you've got left to get down the stairs. Yeah, those kind of workshops are good. Also, we thought maybe one-to-one private workshops. So if you're an artist or you're studying and you have a specific problem you want to solve, often beginners workshops are great for general knowledge and having a bit of a group of people to talk with. But when you've really got a problem you want to solve, you need some one-on-one time. And I've done this, say, at the Royal College of Art. That was a lot of fun. So I'd spend a day a week typically sitting with students, and it would be a quick fire sort of challenge, one at a time, of what their problems are and try and figure out how to solve them with as little time and money if possible. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I've got used to doing, and it's a good challenge for me. It keeps me on my toes, but also it's yeah, it's just really energizing. You sort of get endless problems thrown at you, and you have to try and unpick them, try and think as well what the person wants to learn. So let's say if you've got a lot of time and you're keen to learn about programming, you might want to build stuff yourself, build programs yourself. If that's not your ambition and you just want to build an artwork and be an artist that uses technology but isn't a computer programmer, then that's fine as well. There might be ways you could cheat it. You could hack something together to make it work, or there might be boards you can buy that will cut out a lot of the legwork for you as well. So yeah, a lot of the time the one-on-one tutorials that I've done are more about establishing what the person wants to learn and what they have the time to do as well. And then corporate workshops. So I've done a few of these over the years, and they're generally quite good just for either a team activity, just to get people interested. I've taught a few for educational companies as well, so educational trusts who are teaching teachers. So they want to know how they can advise their students or how they can build this into the syllabus. And we've had all kinds of teachers across like history, sciences, English, maths, not necessarily all computer science teachers or design technology teachers, but yeah, it can be quite an interesting way of showing your team a new way of thinking about things, and you get the same benefits as the other workshops. It's sometimes just nice to do with a team of people you know already. And so, yeah, we'll be putting up a link in the description, which will be, we think we've got a Google form that will just be a quick tick box of what you'd like to learn. And if you're watching this later, it'll still be in the description for the video, what kind of things you'd like to learn, whereabouts you're based, because obviously we're based in the UK, but if you're watching this any part of the world, as long as the time zones work out, we're keen to teach everyone. And yeah, we're looking at building this over the next few months. So leave us a comment. I can see a few already, so I can get to those next. But yeah, any comments, any suggestions you have, things you're itching to learn or to be taught about, let me know, and I'll see if we've covered it before. I'll also be doing some videos, more general YouTube videos, so maybe less live stuff and more pre-packaged getting started with Arduino videos. But yeah, let me know what you'd like to see, and we'll try and get that done. Nice. So I think just onto questions. So I can go back. You don't really need to see that slide. So let's have a look. Oh, I'll see if this works. There we go. MF. How, using an Arduino, would you take a measurement like speed from something like a GPS module or onboard accelerometer to initiate a change into a motor component? It's quite a specific question, but that's fine. Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. You can buy lots of add-on boards. So like he's alluding, or he or she is alluding to, a GPS module with onboard accelerometer. So you could probably get speed either from looking at how long it's taking to get from one location to another. So yeah, you need some way to get that GPS information and figure out how to translate it to a distance number, like a measurement. Otherwise, yeah, the accelerometer will measure, as it says, acceleration, so you can get an idea of like how quickly the vehicle is starting or stopping. But once it's cruising, I don't think you'll get a reading from that. So I think you'd need to have some way to convert your GPS coordinates to a distance measurement, or to maybe to a distance measurement, and then figure out how much time has passed in that time, if that makes sense. And linking up a motor, so the motor, I think in this you have to separate it out into inputs and outputs. So you've got the input would be your speed measurement from the GPS module that you've processed into a speed. It's interesting trying to figure out whether it's speed you're looking for or acceleration. But I'd say if it's speed, you need to know how much distance and how much time it's taken. But if it's acceleration, you might be able to get that just from the accelerometer. And for the motor, there are add-ons that you can buy. It depends on the size of the motor as well. So if it's a very small motor, like I've actually got one here. This is a tiny motor from it's actually from a PlayStation controller. It makes it rumble. It wouldn't need much current to power it. So you might be able to get away with a small power supply. It may even run off a USB, but it would probably damage your computer. So there are some motor controller or motor driver shields that you can use to do that. But yeah, then it's figuring out what you want to do with that, whether you want the motor to move more as the speed goes up, or whether you want to pulse the motor, or yeah, there's any number of things you can do with that. But yeah, drop me your details in the online form. I'll check with Avril that's on the comments for the video, or on the description for the video. happy to have a chat with you about it. Next one up from Krista. Hello, Krista. Hello. Which Arduino sensors could be used for barometric sensing, and are they viable for integration into commercial wearable markets? There are barometric sensors, definitely. There's a whole load of weather sensors that you can get. Excuse me. Yeah, there's a whole load of weather sensors you can get. Wearables is another thing. So I'm not sure. I think you can get quite small sensors that would work. Excuse me, that would work for wearables. So I think that's going to be your only thing with size. But I'm fairly sure there's small barometric sensors you can buy. And as far as being like into the commercial wearable market, a lot of, well, most boards use sensors that are commercially available already. So they might just be, they're typically either the most popular sensor on the market that is the cheapest to manufacture or to supply, or they are end-of-life components that are cheaper because there's a stockpile of them. So once you've found a dev board that you think gives you the right data, it's a bit of a later stage checking supply chain, but you want to check that they're still manufacturing it, and it's maybe check with the manufacturer of it that it's not the last product in its line. They might have made a new one that's even smaller or even cheaper, but yeah, you could definitely I'll have a look. I'll post some links on the chat about barometric sensing, or I can message you later and let you know what I think. And there's another follow-up. I'd be interested in a specialist workshop. Where can I find details about when this will be running? It's very good. So yeah, like I said, we've got a Google form that we'll add to the description of the video. We're not sure on timings and pricings yet, but in the form there's some details about when would be most convenient for you. So we're trying to get an idea of when people want to do these workshops. So traditionally, I went to workshops at the weekend, and I'd spend Saturday and Sunday doing this. Obviously, it's digital now, so we can do it at any time of day. But I'm trying to get an idea of when's convenient. Obviously, people are at home with their families now, so you want to work around your home schedule as well. But my hunch would be that I'll do a specialist workshop, and I'll probably split it over 2 days, a week apart, so that there'll be some time in between. And let me know what kind of specialist workshops you'd like. So if it's, in your case, Krista, wearables, we can do that. There are some really good wearable things, so conductive thread, which I may have talked to you about previously. But yeah, there's things like that you can build in. There's also some really great projects. So if we did do a wearable workshop, I'd find projects that would be a good influence. There's some really cool Google projects that in their R&D space that are public now. And they've embedded tiny little sensor boxes into trainers and things like that. So you'd never even know that they were there. Or you can sew them into garments so they're hidden behind a layer of fabric. So some really cool stuff. And that's part of the workshop as well, just general project inspiration. So trying to show you stuff that you maybe haven't seen before, that will may even give you a new view on what your project could be. So another question from Instagram: what Arduino starter kits would you recommend for a beginner? Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, to get a board on its own, it's about £20 thereabouts. But you can't do a lot with just that on its own. I'd say kits start at about maybe £60 to £70, and they're normally really good to start with. So the official Arduino starter kit, I think there's actually a discount for Arduino Day, so like 10% off, I think. But I think they're £70. You can buy them from a few UK resellers, so you don't get any delivery duty if it's coming from the EU now. But I'd say get the official Arduino starter kit. Let me have a quick look. I'll see if I can post some links in the chat. So maybe actually, Avril, as you're on the chat, if you can find the official Arduino starter kit and post a link, that'd be great. And yeah, like I say, I think that's £70. There's a company, Pimarini, another company, Cool Components, who sell it as well. And that's probably best because you get the Arduino, a whole load of inputs and outputs. So you'll get push buttons, you'll get light sensors, you'll get sliders, dials, things like that. And you'll get enough outputs to play around, like the previous comment said, like motors. So you can get to grips with building circuits to control most inputs and outputs. And you'll also get a project book. I think in the official Arduino one, there's still a project book which has about a dozen projects that you can build. And maybe I guess the aspect that's missing from a lot of starter kits is that there's enough there to do the electronics, but once you've built the electronics, you need to build something to sit in or around it. So I think there's an example where you build like a big top that spins, or not a big top, a merry-go-round that spins around, something like that for the Arduino kit. And that in itself is a bit of a challenge, like how you build stuff to fit on your electronics. And that might even be another topic for a workshop, like how to build enclosures or fittings to fit your project together. Because I think the practical skills are often overlooked. Like the electronics is difficult to get your head around, but it's actually a really a different set of skills to build around your electronics to make an enclosure. And a lot of that you gain from taking things apart and seeing how other people have done it. So like I said, the PlayStation controller, when I took that apart for, I think that was for the book, there's a lot of plastic moldings around it that are designed to keep this motor in place, stop it, make it vibrate just the right way, make sure it doesn't get loose, make sure the wires don't break. But yeah, maybe that's another topic for a workshop. So yeah, I can see I've put a link to the official Arduino starter kit. That'd be fine. Yeah, so no more questions that I can see just yet. Yeah, so pretty much covered a lot of things I wanted to. There's maybe, yeah, I think that's all the questions for now. So yeah, I think that maybe gives you a good gist of my experience with Arduino, what we're hoping to achieve with the workshops as well. I think another area I'd like to talk about that I'll probably do a video about is the kit you need around it. So as well as the starter kit, if you're going to get into soldering, making your own circuit boards, that's another next step. You can sort of see my soldering iron up there as well. And stuff like that is often relatively easy to get going with, but maybe harder to find these days. So say back when I was starting, there was Maplin's was around, which seems like an old store now. Like your high street electrical store, and you could find a lot of stuff there. It wasn't particularly great. A lot of it was quite cheap, readily available stuff. But now you have to find suppliers online. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of Arduino suppliers who stock all the stuff you need. But yeah, I might do a video on a tick list of what you need to build your prototypes beyond the breadboard. So beyond having them laid out on a little breadboard like this, and making them a bit more robust. But yeah, I think as there's no more questions, I'll just say thank you to everyone who's watching live. And if you're watching later, leave a comment. And if you subscribe to the channel, I'll be updating it with a few new sort of videos that I'm going to be pre-recording, going into areas like I've said, like what kits to start with, what kits you need to build, and possible other literature or other sources to go to. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and look forward to chatting again next time. Bye for now.